So, I like the idea of the brothers-in-law speaking this year. I remember speaking at Ahuva and Ilan's Sheva Brachas and explaining that Ilan was now a member of the super elite fraternity of the Mossack brothers-in-law, and that we would show him the super secret handshake later. So, like many things in my life, I remember that it got a really good laugh. Whether it did or not, that's the way I remember it. But aside from it being a decent joke, there was something to it. I really felt then, and I still feel, that we now are all part of the shared Mossack Eliezeri narrative, us brothers-in-law. And at least for me, part of that experience is the way I experience a world where Ahuva is not with us anymore. I don't think I'll ever understand, and I kind of hope I don't have to, the grief of a sister losing a sister. It's like me thinking about the grief of losing a child. As soon as my mind gets close to thinking about what that's like, it distracts itself with something else. I mean, that's a well-known defense mechanism that I've taught a lot about in the classroom, but, you know, I have everyday experience with, and we all do. And although losing a sister-in-law isn't the same, it is difficult. We brothers-in-law, I hope, did a good job of supporting our wives, Ahuva's sisters, and her parents during her illness, death, and dealing with the emptiness her departing created. But speaking for myself and only for myself, I personally find that it gets a little bit harder every year. Here's the first time I remember thinking that I was going to get along with Ahuva. I'm dating Sarah, and Sarah is getting a little bit confused. This was about the first month we were dating, because she's getting this weird friend vibe, you know, friend in quotes, air quotes from me. And I realized I'm going to have to figure out how to tell her that she's pretty, which is not easy, because she is super frum, or at least, you know, from wherever I was in relation to me, I thought she was super frum. And I had no idea what her parents were going to do if they found out that the guy she was dating would actually flirt with her on the first month. So anyway, I tell Sarah that she's pretty, and my memory is that Sarah told me that when she told her family, Ahuva said, "Aw, I want someone who'll tell me I'm pretty." There are lots of stories like this about Ahuva, and just like the music from your youth resonates with you because it's like the soundtrack of your life, Ahuva's presence and energy became part of the soundtrack or tapestry of our lives, even if we didn't see each other every day. Ahuva and Ima were at the hospital when Amitai and Uriel were born. They were there for the beginning of their tapestries. So when this thing that infuses your life is gone, way before it's supposed to be gone, what do? What kind of context do you put it in? You can compare it to maybe unexpectedly losing a sense like taste or smell, in the way that, you know, the world still goes on, but everything is different. You experience it differently. But that kind of a loss of a sense, lahavdil, really can't be compared to what it was like losing Ahuva. So, recently I've been thinking about the meaning of Tzimtzum, which has made it harder for me to distract myself from things like thinking about Ahuva's life and subsequent absence and what it means. I guess the most popular way of thinking about Tzimtzum is like a contraction, the way Hashem contracted himself to dwell in the finite space of the Mishkan. But you can also think of Tzimtzum as a blueprint for sincere and caring relationships. This is probably not a chiddush to biblical scholars, and even in the field of psychology, I think it's been well established that to really appreciate and understand someone else, you have to sometimes contract yourself. You have to contract your preconceived notions. You have to contract your biases. You have to contract your own ethnocentricity. And metaphorically and sometimes literally, you have to make space. You have to create room or even an emptiness that someone else or someone or something else or someone else can fill. So, first off, I think Ahuva was really good at this. She wasn't a shrinking violet, but she was a good listener. She was not afraid, at least by the time I came into the family, to disagree with others, but she always gave them the space to be themselves. And from my perspective, she did this with her husband, her children, her parents, her sisters, her brothers-in-law, and so I assume that she was like this with many other people. It's just I wasn't there to witness that as much. And it makes me think, being present while making space, and maybe this won't really make sense unless you think about it for a while, because I've been thinking about it for a while and it still doesn't make sense to me, but being present and making space is not easy for everyone. And I don't know whether it was easy for Ahuva or not, but I know from my perspective that it seemed to me like she was good at it. And so one of the sources that I was reading about it as I was thinking about Tzimtzum was in Midrash Pesikta de Rav Kahana. We see that Hashem tells Moshe to make him a sanctuary. So Moshe says, Ribono shel olam, hinei hashamayim ushmei hashamayim lo yakalkalucha. Right? He says, Ribono shel olam, the highest heavens can't contain you, but you want us to build you a finite space so that you can dwell. So, you can understand why I'm confused. If Moshe was confused, of course I'm going to be confused. And Hashem tells Moshe that Moshe's idea of Hashem's infinite presence needs to be altered or even expanded, which, again, is a weird thing to wrap your mind around. That we need to expand our understanding to make room for the idea of contraction. Because, as Hashem tells Moshe, Ani yored umitzamsem shchinati beinechem lamata. I'll descend and contract my presence or make space among you below. So, when I think about Ahuva, I think about the lack of presence in our lives, and I think about the space. I think about how she can't tell Amitai and Uriel that she was there when they were born. I know, I can tell them, right? I can tell them that she was there when they were born, but when I do, or when I think about that I can, I am really aware of the absent space that I'm trying to, and thankfully not expected to succeed, in filling. I'm also really confident that Ahuva would not want me thinking about her to overlap so closely with thinking morosely about space. So, like many things in my life, when I ruminate about something, the way I think about them is not that I'm thinking about them morosely, but not every thing in life is, you know, rainbows and candy corn, or lollipops, I guess. There's some song like that. So, I don't think of it as morose exactly. I think often you only notice space once something that's significant isn't there anymore. So, other examples are like when your child leaves home, or your child gets married. You're happy for them and for yourself, but you are keenly aware that they're not there anymore. And that part of the experience is not necessarily happy or sad, right? You sometimes will, you know, don't want to put Adina or Shimon on the spot, but I ever wonder if they, you know, walk by their now married daughter's bed or room and think about what it used to be like when she was home. But you notice they are not there anymore. So I notice the space when I think about Ahuva's family. But more so, I'm happy, and I think Ahuva would be happy at seeing that while she left a space, she is still very present. And in some ways, the space she left is beautiful. I think all of us have had to negotiate or fill that space in our own way. And I'm still negotiating about how to fill that space. So this year, the way I've been thinking about Ahuva's memory is a living testament to the oxymoron of Tzimtzum. Somehow, despite the overwhelming space, there is her undeniable presence. And I am thankful for it. I tend not to speak for my wife, but I'm guessing that in her own way she's thankful for it. And I'm thankful that she and all of us are part of each other's tapestries.